Thank you.
I think that takes into account seasonal. The summer people. I think she said it.
I took Kate off.
Did you sign a Peter yet?
Rochelle, do you want to be the one to introduce this under new business?
Sure.
Or initial, maybe make it under initial and then implement before?
Yes.
Okay, so I bring it up as an item for initial consideration. Shouldn't we have copies for everybody?
There are.
Okay,
He was making reference to,
all right. And then I would read it.
Let's hand it, might as well hand it out instead.
actually the code.
Yeah,
The
right,
building code
right,
format.
Let's call our work session to order, please, and I'd like to begin with a public hearing on this date for an announced public hearing on local law P8 adding section 270-59 to Article 9 entitled Professional Review Fees to Chapter 270 zoning, the city code of the city of Plattsburgh, section 270-59 of chapter 270 of the city code of the city of Plattsburgh entitled Professional Review Fees. There's copies for any of you to review, and this is an opportunity for anybody in the public to please come forward and comment on it. I know that title sounded really fascinating and controversial. Well, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and begin with our work session. The work session, this is our opportunity to have an extended discussion of anything in the agenda that you'd like to afford a little extra time, ask department heads questions, etc. And it also is an opportunity for us to go into executive session. I do have one item for executive session for your consideration if you're willing to discuss an issue of land acquisition for the city of Plattsburgh, continuation of last week's. First by Councillor Kressler and second by Councillor Casper. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed.
No, he's showing me. He's showing off your cruise. Good work.
You see? I hear your painting. Smell it? Check two walls. It's all painted, right? Two walls. Two walls. Let's go look.
Don't worry. We got time.
We got plenty of time, right?
Isn't it made for sneakers? Yeah. But then you don't have to have. Same for stands. I don't know how to
Sanitary community, I told him, under schedules, we're still going on, but every set, it's obviously
And missed that, so you're gonna pick up on that car. It's not there's
afterwards, your well, as long as I know, I can actually get it too. You guys keep talking to me on that? Who's your painter?
Oh, okay. There wasn't any choice, you were just told, paint those rooms.
Well, we never got one that works. It's like a horse, you know, you got the brakes, and that looks good. Looks good.
That's real good.
3 hours worth of work, I see.
That's very good, all that 3 hours.
So.
And the fire alarm went off and they left for, we weren't sure.
That wasn't for
Fire
painting,
alarm, I
that
know,
was,
but we didn't know, so we
Sylvia's
were all like.
He needs some, he turned the shop back on downstairs, going to put floors, the streets, and we so.
Well, at least know the fire alarm works.
Yeah. That's good.
The fire department really responds.
Yep.
So the numbers I show right there.
They could run it down the
But
street.
it's terrible because,
Fire in the corner.
we
I
had fire
don't
alarm,
know,
we're
I
like,
just
oh, well,
give everything off.
yes, just somebody, you know, but what happened to it really?
Everybody's just like, yeah.
It was just the dust.
Well,
It's too cold to go outside.
Fire department stepped up too, went to the fire department. You got hot water in your boat.
Bill triple, says on his office, just walking around. Dropped something for it. One shot at Zoom.
Yeah, right, yeah, sure. Was you going back to watch it?
Well, no, I was just thinking of our last fire call, 6 minutes. But calls come, and we have to fall down, so they can first, not getting up too easy, I gotta go, once you come on down. But anyway, don't blow them more. Yeah. It's not, it'll be close right down the road. And you said they came to light, it's all great. So you can use the lights, but, you know, you don't know. We're not looking for a lot of attention. Remember that? See you fell in your office.
No, I don't remember that.
I called it.
I do remember the lady who came in, who said she was trying to wake up her husband for an hour.
Right, we heard from mine.
Gotta take her out on the stretcher.
He said we were
Yeah.
drive by his
Yeah.
house.
True.
October or January.
Yeah. He says, I'll come start seeing.
I think Jackie gave that
I've got one was like, we'll take one off, or MLD building, she turned all the lights off, and then she walked out. She called the ambulance, that's what you do. Wait a second, I've seen that. No fire, no fire sirens, no more.
They like us. They like
They're
it.
taking that quiet, and they're over the house. Yeah. You remember this?
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's about like 8 years ago.
At the big houses, you're gonna be.
Quite a while ago. Yeah, now that's slightly.
Well, Patty and I went out
Good, that's-
for.
You're a little slow on this, what you got there?
They're almost 10 seconds. Okay, I'll go.
Where's my bullet?
Give it out for time.
By the time they got here, she had heard this accident, just about.
I'm gonna have to take you
Yeah,
outside.
that was,
Actually.
yeah, well, that was when her husband passed away a year.
I learned a lot more from my accident than I did from the first.
We were getting, the anniversary.
What's that?
You don't get run from and stay.
Yeah,
No, I was- I've lost my mind. But nobody ever came back for a second.
Where's your license? She turned off. Thanks, Carol. Stay until I said, where you going? Home, she got the front door.
That's what it was for that.
Down in front of the building.
Exactly.
You never fly. Yeah.
No, we're a little bit, we're accelerating that start, that's why I remember. Oh, it's time.
She and, I think his name is. I got guys. We have guys in the force.
It's a new role, you know.
Yeah, he was. He's still waiting on it. Oh, Gary never returned the phone call. He was there. Yeah. It's gonna cost more in the end because squirrels are getting into the
If I could bring some fry hot for something.
Well, they the building inspector. But he's got more problems. He's got the squirrels are into his house, they're in the attic, chewing whatever. I don't know if he has any electrical up there. He probably does. They're probably chewing.
You ever see?
And he's got a check. The squirrels, the squirrels, it's supposed to go through the rooftop, so it's up in the air, high enough clear. Squirrels have gone through the roof where it was penetrated and actually had valid entrance into his attic. And on top of that, the thing is being pulled forward, and then it's coming off the side of the house.
The best
And the heater pan is
the movie scene.
original about 50 years ago. And it's just still here today. That's so hot, tiny. But, he can't fix the problem. Like that guy, he's got squirrels running around his attic. I mean, he's more than likely got electric water, they're true to that. Plus anything else, whatever they're doing there.
That's not good.
If he gets pulled away from the house, then he's really gonna have to do more. And it's gonna cost him a lot more money. Well, if you can't afford a house, I don't know.
How often you go?
It's probably put stress on that too.
We don't have time.
Because they opened up the hole, just the hole for the pipe to go through, the hole is down pretty wide. And then somewhere they dug in between the roof and the soffit, and it's way into his attic area. So, he's got previous things. It's not the only one in the house.
My son was 6'2". Half the time it's hard. Did it? That's it. Net neutrality. Net neutrality.
Basically, they were trying to classify it as a material.
But they saw us coming.
We gotta fight to get money. Now it's
Right now, we have all had equal access to internet and internet. Now,
This guy just the same problem.
they're going to.
But he can't, he's not gonna do
Different websites are going to
anything.
provide you access. So, if you get like,
Well, that's what we're telling them.
sales company that's got a lot of money, and they pay for higher access, and you turn restricted competitors out. So that if you're trying to get on the website. What's that? What's that?
There's a lawsuit against that decision in the U.S. Attorney General.
all I care. Well, they can pay.
I'm sure they will.
I think it's be about
What, not being able to deduct state and local taxes?
It's on one high report.
You can't have interest, you can.
Mortgage interest up to $750,000.
What's your friend's name again?
This is Richard.
No,
Property taxes is nine.
We're going to triple the property tax. What's going on?
Well, that's what that just means, you get that long shot interest. Scroll that up and down. I was in three of them. Jump into the tree and keep jumping through the
Yeah.
This is our house now. Yeah. They were crazy. Nope, it's off of Cornelia.
Oh.
Just before, Snake Road.
Yeah, okay.
When you're sitting under.
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw HBO for the first time over there. It was. This is a long time ago.
What percentage?
I think the Holy Channel was the first one.
That's HBO Fox.
I gotta have
Roberta Duran was going out to Thomas Hearns or something.
We only have 3 channels.
Hearns and Hagman.
Best flight ever. Best 2.5 rounds ever.
But he remembers that he was there.
I wasn't there, but I watch it every once in a while. That was a fight.
Yeah.
Classic. That was a fight.
That was
And then how about the thriller in Manila?
That's a pretty good fight.
I did see Mike Tyson fight Jesse Ferguson. Went 6 rounds. Ferguson did this. Tyson did what an uppercut. Ferguson got that far up. Out. Caught lines of the fight.
You were the manager.
He was cool.
We didn't get a chance to talk to him. She's got these things out. This is a long time. He was in here. Oh, yeah.
That's how I just make sure you're staying straight.
So that's where they had this.
And the squirrels.
In a condo or a house?
The house. Condo, like, think the condo society, right? What? Party for a week?
John, give me closer to negatives. But we're going to tell you about the restaurant.
Oh, he's gonna be in Times Square. Him and Ben Rose. Great.
Done your play?
I showed everybody the great job you guys are doing in that room on the way up there. Thanks very much for that. Well, let's resume our work session. We're returning back from an executive session discussing an issue of land acquisition for the city, and no actions were taken at that time. Anything you'd like to pull out of the agenda, please, Councilor?
Yeah, John, traveling at the cost of $1,800. I'm not even sure how many approvals we made for other people traveling. I'm not sure how many approvals we've made this year for people to travel to conferences. Is this something that's required for any kind of certification?
It does provide professional development hours for its relicensing.
Okay.
But I understand it's a lot of money. Two things, there's some direct value that we typically get from these types of conferences. And just to back up a bit, as you go to this one every other year, or go to utility management conferences, we typically get a fair amount of free consulting either at the conference or through the relationships that we build and further here. So we end up being able to call people up, hey, we were talking about this issue at the conference, and there's some work like that. There's a lot of indirect value too, especially with the regulators like EDC. There's a lot of work on developing, helping them develop the regulations in ways that make it more affordable and beneficial to cities. And when there's enforcement actions, also being able to call up with credibility and somebody you can talk to and get a straight answer. So there's both direct and indirect type of value from these.
I can appreciate that, and in the past, I've been a firm advocate of professional development. My question would just be, to what extent have we denied, or not even, managers haven't even brought to the table travel requests because of the you know, the tight nature of our budget. And I think it's a matter of fairness. And I would ask too, if there are other ways to get hours towards certification, is that possible? Because $1,800 is a lot of money when other departments are not, I mean, Bill, it's usually Motel 6, $65. And actually now NIMPA pays for it, I think. So, can anybody refresh me on that? Do you recall?
I don't have that at my disposal. My memory's not serving me here.
I will say in general that we discouraged our department heads from
Right.
attending conferences this year.
Yeah.
If it's something you're not comfortable with, I'm not going to be offended by withdrawing it or vote no on it. I do think there is a lot of value to it. Something else, I am a board member and an officer in the capital chapter of the organization, so we do a lot of our business down there with meetings. So I certainly understand the circumstances.
I feel like the only thing that we've seen is the police training out of asset forfeiture. So, to me, it's a matter of consistency. I appreciate the value of professional development investments across the board, I really do. But I also want to maintain consistency and fairness among opportunity for employees to have the ability to get trained up and to have professional development without just a few people being able to go. Police will always have their asset forfeiture money.
John, I didn't look at the backup with regard to this request. Did you itemize it?
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
spreadsheet attached.
Yep.
Typically, the costs do come in less than what I estimate, a few $100 maybe, so it's not going to appreciably change.
Right.
You know.
But the registration was
The registration is $505.
$505.
There's breakfast 3 mornings. I do have money for dinners. Typically, though, either vendors or consulting firms take a bunch of people out, so usually those expenses don't get incurred. There's some travel costs, and then, of course, the hotel costs.
I stayed in a lot of nice hostels in here. Just sorry,
There's a
that
lot
was
of
bad.
Airbnb. In other instances, I would say that's something to be considered. In New York City at this conference, it's such a full schedule from early morning till late at night that it pretty much need to stay there. So if the cost of the hotel is causing you heartburn, then just go off to nowhere, we'll withdraw it, and put it off to another year.
And let's see, February, is there any chance perhaps that we could have another week to consider this? Do you think?
I don't think, it's not, you know.
A way to get the costs down, I'm saying?
Here's the thing, this entire year, we're put into difficult positions, and I'm just trying to be consistent.
Yeah.
You know that.
Sure. I'll tell you, why don't we just withdraw it?
What's the applicability to certification?
Engineering relicensing.
So what happens if you don't get this? Will you have to, for
You
relicensing?
either have to get re-registered doing this piecemeal, like course here, course there kind of thing.
And you'll come to us for that?
What's that?
You'll come to us for that?
Depending on the cost, maybe, maybe not. If it's $200 to do a 2 PDH hour course, that wouldn't typically come to the council. Maybe if it was online, or it was, driving to Albany to take a class or something like that.
So those piecemeals, would it come to 1,700? Will this do it for certification, this one trip?
For, if the hours I'd need for 1 year, yeah.
So otherwise, you'll have to piecemeal it together. Would that come to $1,700 by the time you add all that up?
It depends. Sometimes we can get, sometimes an engineering company will provide a webinar for free. Try to take advantage of as many of those as possible. But typically, if you're going to drive to Albany to take a half-day conference down there, you're going to pay a couple $100 for the PDHs. You're going to pay money for $100 for travel, and sometimes they include food, sometimes they don't. So it's probably going to be comparable, I'd say.
So the hours for this would fulfill all the requirements for recertification?
Yes.
One-stop shopping? Okay.
For the recertification, yes. And frankly, the other benefits from going are where the real value is. But direct cost, if you wanted to look for an offset, that would work.
I know.
So I know where you're coming from.
You know I know these
It's tough,
things.
you know.
I would like to ask Mike that when we start working on the budget in January, that we think about that, the applicability of that to everyone in terms of training, what people need to have for their training, whether it's for certification or recertification is a direct benefit. And I do know the indirect benefits can be just as valuable. So I think we should apply that same rule to other employees in January, just to keep our minds open.
Well, I can remember a similar line of questioning being asked or directed toward other department heads and other department heads, having to account in a similar fashion about how a particular conference had a bearing on certification. And I can even remember asking myself, are there online services that you could take advantage of? It would be probably, I don't know how to do it. I'll leave it up to Mike and his committee, but, maybe part of the accounting can have to do with, I know this is the best bang for the buck, and this is why. Because the information you supply regarding how other kinds of training would amount to the same is really relevant. That says everything.
Is this coming out of the water fund, John?
It's coming out of the water pollution control plan, which is part of the sewer fund. So approximately 65% of it is from sewer ratepayers. The other 35% would be from the major users and the way we bill them. So 2/3 of the cost would be basically coming out of the ratepayers to the sewer fund.
The sewer fund is healthy, the water fund is challenged at the moment.
And, they both have their issues, but the sewer fund is a lot healthier from a cash perspective.
Any further questions?
Thanks for raising that question.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Before we go into main session, is there any other lingering questions you'd like to ask now? Please.
Regarding the local law that we're putting up for adoption tonight, is this part of the infrastructure division?
No,
Where
well, kind of. This was actually something unrelated to that arose, but the infrastructure division has been dealing with it. It has to do with if we need to send an application out for further review, which we customarily do. We've typically had the applicant bear the cost of that, but we recently looked into it and we saw no authority in the code to do that, so we just wanted to make sure that it was very clearly understood, and that if and when we did that, we discussed that with the applicant.
So if an applicant comes in with an engineering plan, this would then allow us to have it reviewed by an outside consultant?
If necessary, and it's not a routine thing. It's usually when we feel we need extra expertise. This case arose out of a particularly complicated drainage scheme for development.
So who would question if it needed the extra expertise?
Do you want to, it would be your
That would be the
board?
boards itself, the planning board, the ZBA, or the common council. If for some reason there was some kind of application in front of the council. The respective boards would.
Okay. All right, because on the infrastructure division, we had consulting to fill gaps. Is that part of
Yeah, no,
it?
this
No,
isn't
that's the
that.
provision.
That's another
This is
consulting.
something we've been doing typically
All
for
right.
years, actually.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So you're saying that the only difference is that you're codifying it rather than...
Making sure it's clear in the code. Yeah.
Just one, yeah, that's true. And then just if there's any other, there's one item for initial consideration. I believe
Okay.
Council Armstrong is going to
Yes.
be raising it. It's, as promised, last week, there was a discussion on the snow removal. So this resolution, which you're going to pass out, is
Sure.
increasing the snow removal fees for specific events. So if you guys want to implement Rule 4, that's fine, or if not, we can take it up next week. But just wanted to follow through with what we talked about last week.
Should we discuss it then when the time comes and start the meeting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's begin the meeting with the Pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel? Counselor Casper? Here. Counselor Kretzer?
Here.
Just a couple of brief comments. First of all, I let the councilors know, but please do watch the progress we're making in the renovations in this building to move finance over here. Already the infrastructure division has been relocated upstairs, and the community development office is about halfway downstairs. The DPW crew is actually painting one of the locations for them. They're doing a fine job on that. We expect that room to be done next week or two. In the meantime, we're doing some renovations downstairs, and that is shaping up really well under the guidance of Carol Garcia as well. So making good progress on that. The bottleneck we're finding is with painters and people to lay the carpet. And obviously, you paint before you lay the carpet. So we're anticipating that the actual physical move might occur about 2 weeks later than what we'd hoped, but we'd already made arrangements with MLD, and they find that satisfactory. Snow has fallen. Already the code enforcement office and some police officers have been out looking for potential, the quality of the snow clearing. We do ask the public to be very mindful that it is their responsibility to clear the snow off their sidewalks. They very diligently do their driveways often, but we think it's very important for them to be mindful of those that try to navigate on our city sidewalks, especially those who are disabled and really have a hard time getting around as it is. So we thank the public for doing their part in that. And you'll see a resolution tonight clarifying a policy and updating a policy that has been at least 10 years in existence as well. But I know the council.
I actually do the reverse. I clear the sidewalk and then I just ram my car up the driveway.
I think that's a pretty widespread technique, I believe.
Or I saw somebody who had a very good place to put all the snow from the sidewalk, just push it right onto the road, and then you guys have to worry about that.
That's illegal.
Yeah,
I mean, that's cited in our code.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's all I have to report.
Can I ask a question about the snow removal? One word that's come up that I haven't seen before, and I had two people ask me, they were both residents of Broad Street, infirmed. What are
The
we
infirmed
doing?
is, one thing we don't want, and I think the council, you've got a committee working on fleshing out the policies for this. I think that there needs to be a way for somebody who isn't able to go out and clear their own sidewalk. I know that you'd started a volunteer corps for people that perhaps could do it for them. If they can afford to have it done, then we'd hope they would do what everybody else does and has it cleared for them. But we don't want to see anybody risking their lives because they don't have enough money to get it done and they are of poor health. So
the question was, because I think it was in the news release, they asked, do we need to shovel if we're considered infirmed?
they do.
They do.
But there will be an appeals process to take care of those issues if should they arise. So my message is, if really is going to be a health concern for you, the last thing we want you to do is endanger your own health. On the other hand, remember the reason why we're trying to take care of the sidewalks in the first place is to protect the health of other people from not slipping on their sidewalk or trying to navigate on the road in a wheelchair because the sidewalks are not cleared properly. So I think that there will have to be some sort of mechanism to balance those interests. But you all were here when the policy was affirmed. The policy is for people to shovel their own sidewalks, and there's no change in that policy.
Okay, so it's not as though the city's gonna go shovel for them, because they got that impression.
No, and I
Okay.
believe under your resolution
Okay.
tonight, there is a set of fees for those
Yes,
people who
okay.
choose not to do it.
Okay, I'll let them know. I wasn't clear, all right.
Anything else? Continue, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on December 7th, 2017 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending December 13th, 2017 in the amount of $110,397.17 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the reports as listed are hereby ordered, received, and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Counselor Casper, second by Counselor Kretzer. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that bills audited by the common council for the week ending December 15th, 2017 in the amount of $4,157,094.31 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for anybody in the public to please come and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. There will be another public comment period for other issues of mutual concern at the end of the meeting.
Second.
One more invitation to come and please address the council for any issues on the agenda tonight. Seeing none, we continue.
Adoption of local law P-8 of 2017. Resolved the local law P-8 adding section 270-59 to Article 9 entitled Professional Review Fees to Chapter 270 zoning the city code of the city of Plattsburgh, section 270-59 of Chapter 270 of the city code of the city of Plattsburgh will be entitled Professional Review Fees. This local law shall take effect immediately upon approval by the mayor and filing with the New York State Secretary of State. The entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the Common Council is hereby enacted without the reading thereof, and a copy of said local law is made part of the minutes of this meeting.
Moved by Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves proposal from Schnabel Engineering Geotechnical Explorations and Analysis for Mead Reservoir Dam at an estimated total cost of $152,600, and the mayor be authorized to execute the agreement.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor. I was hoping we could have discussed this during the work session, but we ran out of time. But I just want to share a story with you. I heard on the radio today a story from Springfield, Massachusetts, that they have a water system very much like ours, and maybe you're aware of it, John. They have a reservoir up on a mountain called the Quabbin Reservoir, and it serves 33% of Massachusetts water, public water, from one system. And it was first conceived in the 1880s, and it was built out extensively in the 1920s when the city of Springfield started to grow. But the most interesting thing I heard in that story was that, two things. One is that it very much sounded like our system, and two, they spend a lot of money every year maintaining that system, as much as we do. And in the years I have served on the council, I think I can recall maybe 5 or 6 of these types of studies that have been done to assess the quality of the water supply. And a lot of them center around the dams, I should say. And I just wonder, with all that money that we spent, was it worth it? Is this worth $152,000?
Yes.
Okay. Explain to us why, please.
Well, this is to help us resolve a very serious situation. We we've got the Mead Dam, which is close to 100 years old. We also have the spillway, which is in really rough shape. It's probably been known for a long time. And actually, improvements to the Mead spillway were designed maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We put it out to bid. The bids came in a lot higher than we were expecting, and a lot more than we thought we could afford at that point in time. So we developed a monitoring plan that was approved by the DEC, where we could do some very intensive monitoring of the spillway chute and do interim repairs as necessary to keep it safe. And that's what we've been doing the last probably close to 5 years in order to avoid the $7 million price tag that we were confronted with. And since that time, we've been doing the investigation and additional data collection necessary in order to try to get the total cost of the project down without compromising the integrity of the infrastructure. So we've actually switched consultants. Schnabel, first thing they did was a revised hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, which looked at, all right, how much total water do we need to pass through the spillway? And they were able to demonstrate through a lot more detailed data evaluation that the amount of water that was anticipated would actually be less. So what that did was it shrunk the size of the project. So from a proportional perspective, we're hoping that's going to go from a $7 million project down to a $5 million project. They then did some analysis of different possibilities of improving the spillway and the spillway chute. They ruled some out. They said some are worth pursuing further. And in order to pursue those further, they started collecting more data than was available at that time. Unfortunately, what's happened as additional bits of data were collected, it did not look good. They realized that the concrete is suffering from a lot of internal fracturing and also what's called an alkali silica corrosion that's happening. And it's really called into question how much of the existing concrete can be reused. They've also done some additional analysis of the seismic stability of the dams and become concerned that during a seismic event, there's a possibility that the soil could become unstable. So these concrete borings and these additional soil borings are going to give the data necessary to demonstrate what type of protective measures need to be implemented in this rehabilitation. I know that's a lot of talk, but it goes towards, the money. This money's been well spent, and there's been some similar price tag, not quite this amount of money, but $50,000 here, $40,000 there over the last 5 years. When you compare that to a bond payment on $7 million, it's a fraction of the cost. So from a financial perspective, it made sense to invest these smaller amounts of money in analysis and interim repairs to avoid the big ticket cost prematurely. Does that make sense? So that's kind of what's been going on. But we're to the point now with Mead where time's just about up and we need to take some decisive action. And this is going to give the data to finalize that decisive action.
It sounds like the estimated cost has gone from $7 million to $5 million.
Correct.
So, and this $152,000 that we're about to spend is a part of that $2 million savings. Is that correct?
Yes, and the hope was additional data will allow us to keep shrinking further because with more data, you don't have to make such broad assumptions in your analysis. That's the direction this was going. The last set of data, though, said, well, hold on, some of these assumptions might not have been all that great in the past. They were assumptions based on some engineering judgment, empirical observations. So I'm hoping that this additional data will shrink the project further, but there is the chance that it says, oh my gosh, there's a bigger problem than we thought, could drive the cost back up. If that's the case, that'll be disappointing from a financial perspective, but it'll be very fortuitous from the perspective of safety and long-term functioning. So.
And you're serving water to 20,000 plus people, so.
Or protecting us from a break as well.
Oh, and something else to realize, I think it is spending money. It's money that There's already an an infrastructure investment charge that has been providing cash flow already for these expenditures and additional cash to offset whatever the ultimate long-term cost of the rehabilitation is. So from the perspective of needing to raise rates for this, it doesn't affect the budget that's in place now. So.
Okay. One other thing is that Mike Brody is a big fan of the Mead Dam, and he took me up there once and
All of
showed
us.
me around. Probably all of us. And, one of the things he said that I'll never forget, actually two things he said I'll never forget, the system is gravity fed, so it doesn't need any type of fuel or anything to deliver water to the people, which was, whoever engineered that was a genius. And
God.
Gravity. The other thing was that somewhere in that flow of water out of that system, there's a connection to the town. So if the town ever needed water from the city, we could provide that. And we have the capacity for that. And I thought that was pretty interesting also.
As a matter of fact, that dam has the capacity, we only use about a third of the capacity of that dam. We could provide water for the town, Peru, Beekman Town, and still have a lot left over. And once in a while, on a regular basis, the town does draw city water in certain parts of their area. And in emergencies, for instance, the Comfort Inn fire a few years ago, it was city water and city firemen that essentially extinguished that. The town's capacity could not have kept up with that kind of volume, but the volume we have from Mead Dam could keep up with that without even blinking an eye.
With the mayor and the council's indulgence, Jean Dustin lives adjacent to the Mead Dam. She was coming in as you were introducing public comment on the resolution. Would you be amenable to her saying a few words?
With your indulgence?
Of course.
Sure.
I've lived next to a valley by the dam since 1969. So this coming June will make 49 years. In 1996, in November, I had cause to take some pictures. These in particular show a problem, I think. I have many more pictures, Josh, of the same thing. Most of these are of the valley. That's of the spillway. You can see what's called rooster tails at the top of the spillway. This was in 1996 in November. There was quite a flood. So I got out there with my little camera and took pictures of the problem. Here's something we all have trouble realizing. That dam was put in 1927? I think 1927. Since then, there's been so much development, houses, beautiful houses, all over those wooded hills that are the so-called watershed. And each house covers the watershed. They're big houses. Each house puts in a paved highway from a paved driveway, I want to say. And that also prevents rain and snow from sinking in. Many of those houses have gorgeous swimming pools, which also takes up ground which would soak up the rain and the snow melt. So when there's a big rain, when there's a big snow melt, there is nowhere near the sucking up capacity of the rain or the melted snow that there used to be in 1927. At this time, there's a lot more deluge going through. And this shows, I hope you can see, the rooster tail at the top. The other rooster tails are submerged under the one. Did you see the rooster tail? Yeah. Ooh. What else can I say? The valley itself, very much washed out. Some of those pictures are of that. Here's, Josh, I'll bring these to you. These are the front of our house on that day. We have two little tiny ponds, and wow, They were much bigger on that day in November of 1996. So I do think you have need really for a much bigger, stronger dam than was built in 1927. Because of development, hardly any trucks went by or cars way back in 1969, and now Grand Hill Road is busy all the time. All those folks are workers. Believe me, they're paying big bills on big houses, let me tell you. And they're up at 4 and 5 in the morning driving to work.
I think
In the
that,
meantime, they've covered up a lot of the watershed with their driveways, their houses, and also trees are important to a watershed. And they've taken down a lot of trees. Anyway, whatever.
Good points.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mrs. Dustin.
Good points.
Thank you.
I think that just reaffirms a position I've had for some time, that the Mead Dam is not simply a city asset, but it's an asset for our entire region, and we all need to recognize that.
It is a bird sanctuary par excellence. And I know a lot of people maybe don't like geese, the snow geese and the Canada geese. I adore them. And I gotta tell you, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were just thousands of geese overhead of my north-south roof that they put. My house is a solar house, by the way, for light, not for heat. They expect it to freeze all winter. My house might have been built in 1790. The whole complete thing was sold in 1810. That's the first deed. But it was a solar house for getting up early and finding a window on the east side or east side in the morning and west side in the afternoon for people to get to the window and work, starting at the crack of dawn and working. And I mean, it was a whole different aspect of solar from now.
Well, thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And thanks for calling them Canada geese.
I wave goodbye, I say bye-bye, sweethearts.
Well, and I think it's really important, I mean, what you highlight is consideration of the entire watershed area in terms of the overall health of the dam.
Thank you.
May I ask John how he would answer her concerns?
I would say a lot of her points are spot on, which is over time, conditions change. And we need to make sure that whatever rehabilitation measures we implement are based on present data, and not make assumptions about what happened in 1920 or 1930.
Or 1996.
1996 even, sure. And, you know, one of the concerns, or one of the questions is, are things moving? Some of the costs here is for the installation of what's called an inclinometer, which is going to be a hole drill, but it's going to be a measuring device. So we can monitor it and see if the soil or the dam or anything are in fact shifting over time. And some of the other data that's going to be collected, right to your point, are piezometers. What's the water level inside the earthen part of the dam, and how is it changing? And is it the same as what was assumed back when the dam was built, or what was going on in 1996, just for those reasons. So, yeah,
Well, if I can follow up, you know, you can do work on the dam, but the watershed itself, showing that ponding, extreme ponding, and the inability of the earth to sponge it up, wouldn't that destabilize the dam?
It would have the potential to do that. My understanding, a lot of the data out there is it's very close to the dam and the watershed, but it actually drains a different direction. So whatever surface drainage there is occurring. And actually some of that, in theory, potentially could help, because if that water from a roof or a pool or a driveway now is not percolating into the ground, but it's being shed off into a storm drain away, from one perspective, it could actually be lessening the amount of water that's going in. But at the end of the day, it's hard to say, so put in the piezometers, measure the water level. Do the test on the soil. A lot of it's to measure how much moisture is in the soil, because soil properties can change a lot depending on what the moisture content is. Fines and clays in particular. Probably have seen clay that's all dried out, it's brick, it's hard as a rock. But when clay gets wet and saturated, it then becomes spongy and tends to liquefy, especially during a seismic condition. And the liquefaction of the soils under a seismic condition could lead to a catastrophic event. So that if you look through all the different types of tests that are being performed, it's really to get at what's the soil stability here, and what can we rely on, and what factors of safety would be appropriate during these gravity developments. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
And you could use helicopters to map how much of the ground is no longer watershed.
Or drones. Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves Environmental Manager John Ruff to attend the 2018 NYWEA Annual Meeting Conference in New York City from February 4th through 8th, 2018 at an estimated cost of $1,790.
Moved by Counselor Kretzer, seconded by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion?
In our work session, I thought Becky Casper raised a good point, and that is we have been very strict about attending conferences and things with all of our department managers this year. And as much as I like John and the work he does, and I know this would be good, I think in this interest of fairness, I'm going to have to vote no on this.
Any other discussion?
Well, I'm the one who raised the objection in the first place, but in the interest of fairness too and practicality, given that we could have either the same amount spent or more in order to provide the hours for recertification, on that basis alone, I'll support it. But I do want to have this review across the
Right.
departments
Right.
in the future.
And maybe there can be some kind of template or mechanism by which alternatives can be explored, some kind of, presentation of how we arrived at the necessity to go to this particular thing. I don't know. What?
I think last year John spoke at this conference at one very similar to it.
Utility management classes, workshop.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
No.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions for initial consideration?
Yes. As was reported last week, there are several different ways in which we're trying to pin down a sensible enforcement process for the snow removal code. As our corporate counsel suggested last week, and to this evening, there are, years old, 10 years old fees, and so they've been updated. You have a copy. If you would like me to read it aloud, or should I read it aloud for the public?
Not if we're keeping it on for initial, but if we're contemplating Rule 4.
Right, okay, so here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to offer it for initial consideration and hope that you will consider the implementation of Rule 4. And so therefore, I will read it. Schedule of snow removal costs under Chapter 233, Article 5 of the Code of the City of Plattsburgh. Adopted by the City of Plattsburgh Common Council resolution dated December 14th, 2017. Any property owner not compliant with Article 5 of the City Code, removal of snow and ice on public sidewalks, who fails to clear or remove the snow and/or ice within 24 hours after public notice of the end of the storm has been announced, which results in a city employee or a city-designated independent contractor removing and/or treating the snow and ice, shall be subject to the following charges for labor, equipment use, and administrative time and expense. These charges are authorized by Section 233.35 and 233.36 of the Code. Administrative fee, $35 per event. Minimum fee of $200 per event if completed by machine removal. Minimum fee of $250 per event if completed by manual removal. Additional fee of $1.50 per linear foot of sidewalk if over 75 linear feet of sidewalk snow removed by machine. An additional fee of $1.80 per linear foot of sidewalk if over 75 feet of sidewalk snow removed manually.
I move to invoke Rule 4.
Second by Councilor Kretzler. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Galvin?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kreitzer?
Yes.
Are there any liaison reports, please?
Oh, I thought we had to move the resolution in addition to invoking.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we have moved, we didn't have a vote to invoke Rule 4. So how about a vote to invoke Rule 4, just yea or nay?
Yay.
Yay.
And discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Galvin?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kreitzer?
Yes.
Thank you. Any liaison reports or other business?
Yeah, I have some items. Last week, we considered the possibility of increasing taxi rates. There's been some feedback from Sylvia Parrott, our clerk. And I think there's been some concerns raised about other matters related to that, all kinds of taxi operations. I would just like to encourage the council to very soon address the matter. I think a recommendation was made by the clerk regarding a rate change. Did everybody feel satisfied with that recommendation?
Well, I thought she had sent a second one out saying she had reviewed it again.
Oh, I thought there was an even more recent one, so, but anyway, so
Yeah.
let's just, what I'm trying to establish here is that let's study this
Yeah.
and move it along. You know, I certainly appreciate all the discussion that revolved around the matter and questions and so forth, but let's set our sights on reaching some kind of conclusion around the first of the year, I hope.
Sure, well, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to take time
Yeah.
in work session next week.
Yeah.
Unless we have a really full agenda.
Well, I won't be here as my husband's
that's
having
right.
surgery,
That's
but
right.
that doesn't matter. I mean, as long as there's enough people to give it the consideration it needs.
Next week is the last meeting of the year.
Correct.
If we do that, we have to do it next
Right.
week, so wait until 2018.
But, you know, within the next little while. I also have a question that was brought up by a constituent to me about construction on South Peru Street, past McKinley going south, or is that? Toward the juncture with South Catherine. Apparently there was a single dwelling home that's being developed into multiple unit. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, so the question was, did that comply with the zoning, or did it need a variance? It seemed out of character to this constituent, and so I just wanted to be able to reassure that person that the proper channels were gone through.
Okay, well, first of all, you can certainly refer them to me if they have want any detailed explanation. But it's an R2 district where multi-residential is permitted. The developer purchased the property and he's adding on several units. He actually, this is a phased project, and in the full build out, he's going to need planning board approval, but he's been approved for the first 3 units right now. So that's what he's doing right now. In the spring, he's going to apply to the planning board for the full site plan approval.
And it's R2.
And it's R2, which is multi-residential is permitted. I think the entire build out is 6 units.
Right, because at the juncture of McKinley and South Peru, that's in the same area, right? And we
Yes.
have multiple units there. Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other new business or reports?
I'll just indicate that Councilor Ensel and myself met with 3 members of the Plattsburgh City School District, the school board, regarding their bridge, and discussion about the future of that, and further discussions will take place at the onset of the new year. Also, I met with a member of the Public Safety Committee. We had a subcommittee. Mr. Santor and I met, had some discussions of what we're going to bring forth. And did you want to comment on our meeting?
Well, Councilor Dowdle and Ensel and myself met this week regarding personnel matters, particularly our management pay structure and benefit structures. No conclusions yet, but we're talking.
Thank you. Any other reports or new business? Any other public comments on any issues of mutual concern? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Kelly. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Spencer?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming. Did I see correctly at an MLD meeting tonight?
That was on that Operation Never seems to follow it. It's Friday's
A lot of notes.
Great. How are you? Good.
We're meeting next Wednesday.
That was really good year. Did you enjoy that?